Well, good afternoon. Welcome back to the shop. Thanks for stopping in. You know, if you are looking for a fun, a useful, a simple, a budget-friendly project that the whole family can get behind, well, look no further. This one checks all the boxes. Now, what you're looking at is a raised garden bed that I recently made out of some repurposed pallet wood. You know, as I said, this is a fun little project to put together, and it's really easy to make. You know, essentially what we're making here is a box that you put dirt in. So it doesn't get really any easier than that. And there's really no wrong way to do it. So it's a perfect project for folks who don't have a lot of experience, or perhaps don't have a lot of space or a limited set of tools. And it's really just a fun project to put together. So if this looks like a project that you might be interested in doing, stick around and I will go through the steps and the process of how to put one of these together, because I'm going to be making another one using this wood right here. I just picked this up yesterday, and as you can see, I haven't even taken the nails out of this yet. I'm going to spend a few minutes doing that. I'm going to take the nails out of this, and I'm going to cut these all to size so that we've got all the pieces, and then we'll go through the pieces and how we put them together when I get that done. So let me get that going. Okay, so here we are out in the shop the next day. I spent a little time after supper last night out here, taking the nails out of those pallet wood boards and cutting them all to size. And this is what we're left with. So even though it looked like there was a lot of wood there, I didn't need to use anywhere near that much. So I'm not kidding you when I say this is a pretty basic project that really anybody can do. All right, so I've taken a minute. I've got those cut pieces moved out of the way and set over here so that we can grab them when we need them. And I've set up the base of the piece right here, the two long pieces, the front and the back, and the two side pieces here. Now, one difference you might notice is that the side pieces for the piece that we're now putting together doesn't have these cutouts in them. These cutouts, they come from the stringers on the bottom of the pallet, and I thought they added a nice touch, so I incorporated them into the beginning piece. But I only had one left, which was fine. I was going to cut it in half, use one side for one end and one side for the other. But as I was taking some of these nails out, this piece broke, and I don't have another one. So I called an audible, and we're just going to use some 2x4s, and that's fine. Again, I think if there's a theme for a project like this, it's whatever works for you. So anything that gets the job done is certainly worth considering. Now, when it comes to fastening these joints together, there's a lot of different options available, but I'm going to really quickly just cover the three most common that will work just fine. The first option is just simply use nails to fasten one piece to the next. It's effective, it's cheap. You have to be careful that you don't split the wood when you do that, but it does a nice job. Another way to fasten these pieces together that you might want to consider is to, go to your local hardware store or your local big box store and look in the hardware section for some brackets, some L brackets like this that you can fasten along the side, or some back brackets that you can put on the inside or outside of a corner, or both. That works, and obviously that is going to secure those very nicely. Lately, I have been using some pocket screws, and that really has become my favorite way of fastening two pieces of wood like this together, and that is what we're going to be using here. So let me show you how we do that real quick. If you're curious on how to use one of these tools, where to get it, how to set it up, how to use it, I recently did a video on just that. So I'm going to leave a link in the description, or you can check out the playlist. But let's get going with this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clamp this piece in place. This is one of the end pieces. Put it down like that, and we're going to take this drill. I've already preset all this up, and just drill right into it. Next, we're going to unclamp it. We're going to turn it around, keeping the same side out. Clamp this back in and drill two more holes. Okay, now we're back over at our base piece, and we're going to join these two long stringers to this short stringer that we just put the pocket holes in. You know, I came over here and I had forgotten that this has, you know, it's not square. So I decided to add a third pocket hole in the center on both ends just to help secure it a little bit more. So let's see if we can attach these pieces together in some fashion that works. Okay, we'll put screws in there, and then we'll move on to the next piece. Okay, now we have all 4 pieces attached, and it's, you know, more or less square. I think it's within a 1/4 inch of square. I did the old, you know, cross check. Is it perfect? No. Does it need to be? No. So let's move on to the next part, which is, you know, putting these pieces up here. These are going to go right like this, and we're going to use the same method of pocket holes to attach them and secure them, one on each corner. All right, so now that we've got our 4 corner posts pocket drilled and ready to install, rather than putting them in the base, I found that it's easier to put them in the top cross pieces up here on the bench so that I'm not working down on the shop floor upside down. You'll see what I mean in a minute, but let's attach these. These are the top cross brace pieces. They'd be these pieces right here. Instead of down here, those are the base pieces. There we go. That's a nice strong joint. Let's do 3 more. Okay, now maybe it makes a little more sense about why we put these on first, because we're going to attach these here to the bottom piece now, attach these down to here. And I didn't want to do that first and then have to be working upside down trying to get these pieces on. It's just easier to do it like this. So let's attach those pieces, and then we'll see what we do next. All right, there you have it. You see it? You see a method to the madness? Next we got to put these cross brace pieces in place. One here, or thereabouts, and one here. So we got to drill some pocket holes in these, and we'll attach those the same way. Okay, so it looks like our basic box frame is done. I suppose the proper thing to do would be to check this for square, but number one, it really doesn't matter. And number two, or maybe this is number one, questions you don't really want the answer to, you just don't ask. I think it's close enough, and that's good enough. I know that's going to drive the perfectionists out there crazy, but sometimes perfection is the enemy of progress. And again, just keeping our eye on the goal here, we're just trying to put a box together that we can put some dirt in and have some fun while we're building it. I'm having fun. All right, so the next step is to install these cleats right here. You can see I've got some on this side as well, and that's really just for aesthetic reasons. It doesn't have any other function. If we didn't put these in here, it would be kind of unbalanced. It'd have these real thin edges, while everything else has the thick edges, the top and the bottom and the front and the sides. So we're just going to put these cleats in real quick, and then we'll move into putting the slats on. See what I mean? Doesn't that look better? Don't see it? Okay, well, take my word for it. Okay, this next part should go relatively quickly, and that's putting these slats in and securing them on the inside here. And that shouldn't take too long. There's a couple different ways you can do it. Obviously you can use some drywall screws or some wood screws and a drill with a screw bit and screw them in. You can nail them in by hand. I happen to have this airless nailer that is going to work real well. It's going to make a quick work of this. But again, you don't have to have fancy tools for this. A simple hammer and some nails will suffice. But since I have this, I'm going to use it. So let's go. All right, well, we got the sides on, and that looks pretty good. I think we're going to call it a day right now and finish up tomorrow. We basically got, the top to put on here, the frame around the top to put on, and then some cleats on the inside and a little bit of a false bottom, and then we're done. So probably, maybe another 45 minutes of, finished work, if you will, and we'll call this good. So I'm going to get cleaned up, and we'll see you tomorrow. Well, here we are back out in the shop again, just finishing up, as I said before. Put a little bit of a false bottom here. I've already done that. What I did was I just put some cleats along each edge here, and then just cut some slats, some of the scrap pieces that we had left over, and just laid them in there. These aren't fastened down by any stretch, and you can raise and lower this false bottom, depending on what it is you're planting in here. I'm just going to put some garden plants in here. I don't need a lot of soil. Typically we'll put down some grass and some leaves and some twigs that will help the soil drain through, but will also hold the soil from eroding through the cracks here. We want good drainage, but we don't want it to be too good. So anyhow, we've got this false bottom in place. We're going to use it like it is. So the last thing we're going to do before we call this done is we're going to put this frame around the top just to finish it off. You could, obviously it's functional the way it is, but I just like it to look a little bit more finished, and I've got a couple of pieces left over, so I'm going to use them. So let me show you how I'm going to miter those corners so that they fit when we have a box that is not exactly square 90 degrees on each corner. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of different ways to do it, but this is a way that I found that works for me. So what I've done is I laid out my 4 pieces with a little bit of overhang on the inside here, and a little bit more than that on the outside, just to create a little bit of relief. And the way that I make sure that they're square is I take this, I've got this set to 1/2 inch. I don't know if you can see that or not. And I simply just put that against the bottom side, and I move this in and out until I get to exactly 1/2 inch, right there. And then I do the same thing here. That's 1/2 inch there. That's 1/2 inch there. And then I can go from this corner to this corner, and I can mark that. And that's the angle that we're going to cut. And I'm going to do that on each corner. I'm going to nail these pieces in place temporarily so they don't move around. I'm going to saw this in place right down that line. I'm going to cut through this piece and the piece below it, and that way the 2 pieces should match up with each other when they're finally flush with each other. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, stay tuned. I'll show you what I'm doing, and maybe it'll make a little more sense in a minute or two. But let me finish marking all these corners and fastening this down, and then we'll get to cutting this up. Now I could use my circular saw for this and just cut through. In theory, it just basically, if I just cut right on the line, obviously there's going to be a little bit of gap, but then I just move everything a little closer together for the final fitting, and everything should be fine. But I'm going to use this hand saw here just for a little bit more control. Okay, all those corners are cut. There's a little bit of a gap, obviously, from the kerf. We're going to pull these nails out, and then we're going to shrink the whole thing together and see how they form up here on the edges. They should be, in theory and in practice, because I've done it before, in a pretty good match. So let's see how that works. Well, that's not too terribly bad, and neither is that. A little bit of a wobble in the blade there, but we'll put some filler in there and some paint, fill it up. Again, this is just a box we're putting dirt in. This one's a real nice corner, and so is this one. Got a little bit of overlap here and here. You know, I could shorten it up a little bit, I suppose, but you know, I'm just going to do this. Looks just fine. Same with that. All right, we've mitered our corners, we've nailed them in place. You know, I would say that for the most part, these corners look just fine. Are they perfect? No. Do they need to be? No, they don't. The only thing left to do really is to paint this. And at that point, this becomes really just a blank canvas. You can do really whatever you want. I put some dark cherry stain on that one. It looks okay. It's fine. But especially if there are kids involved, you know, you can hand them, you know, a couple of quarts, different colored latex paints and some brushes. Put a drop cloth down and let them have at it. Let them make this their canvas and make it whatever they want to be. They could paint it whatever colors they want. They could draw murals on it. They could really make it their own. Or, you know, if you're trying for a little bit more of a, you know, refined look, you know, choose your own colors and, you know, and paint it up. Do whatever you want with it. I'm not exactly sure what color I'm going to paint this yet, but we'll figure it out as we go along, just like we did with this whole project. So after having said all that about this being a blank canvas and making it your own and all that stuff, I'm basically just going to paint this the same color as the other one because, you know, I'm boring and I really don't have a statement to make. I just want to get this done so that I can fill it with dirt and start growing a garden. So here we go. Let's put some paint on this thing and let's get this thing across the finish line. Well, we've got our raised garden bed, you know, set in place and more or less level. And then, like I said, we filled the false bottom with some mulch. Okay, now we've got our raised garden bed filled with soil and we're ready to put these plants in the ground, or, you know, in the box, as it were. Okay, well, we have a raised garden bed all planted. We've got some eggplant, we've got some cherry tomatoes, more eggplant, couple of watermelon plants, some zucchini squash, and some snap peas. Boy, doesn't that look nice? So I think that's going to conclude it for this little project. And again, I think this is a project that pretty much anyone can make. So if you have a hammer, a saw, a tape measure, and some nails, you can make something like this. It really doesn't take much. I have the advantage of having, a circular saw and some other tools, but really the basics will do it. And there's no hurry. You can take as long as you want. If you know what you're doing and you've got the tools, you could probably knock this out in an afternoon. But if it takes you a week or 2 weeks, that's fine. A little bit every day, moving forward. And, at the end of the day, you'll have something you can be proud of, something that maybe makes some memories with the family. At any rate, I hope this little build was as enjoyable for you as it was for me. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you in the next one.